Hey, welcome back. I'm Sal from S&S Grills, and today we're cooking one of my favorite recipes to serve during the holidays or any special occasion, a boneless rib roast. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Now today, I'm going to be making a delicious rib roast that you can serve on a plate with a little bit of au jus, or place it in some bread and you could dip it in for a delicious dinner. But stay tuned, and I'm going to give you a third idea on how you can serve it to picky eaters, well, who do not like their roast at a medium rare temperature. Okay, so let's start out by prepping up the slow and sear master kettle for the first stage of our cook. We'll want to set up the kettle for a low and slow temperature between 225 and 250. You'll want to light between 10 to 12 normal size briquettes. I'm going to be lighting 4 because these are bigger briquettes. Let's stack and let them start up for a few minutes. Now for the first stage of the cook, I'll want to go low and slow to instill some smoke flavor and slowly get the roast up to temperature. Once the coals are ashed over, I'll want to pour in some unlit charcoal. I'll be running between 2 to 3 hours here, so I don't need a lot of charcoal. Fill about halfway full. Next, I'm placing about 2 cups of hot water. I don't need to fill the reservoir with water completely. I'm placing in a chunk of cherry wood for flavor. Let's close the lid and let the grill come up to temperature. For my vent settings, I'll close the bottom vent all the way, and the smoke hole I'll set to half open. Top vent is also set to half open. I'll make any minor temp adjustments by opening and closing the top vent. I have this 6-pound boneless rib roast that's been dry brined and tied down. Now you're probably wondering how I got here, right? So let me show you what I did yesterday. 2 nights ago, I took this 6-pound boneless ribeye roast and tied down the rib roast with butcher's twine after removing any excess fat on the outside. For this size rib roast, 3 pieces of string was enough. This will give it a nice round shape for more even cooking, and it's going to help keep the roast together during cooking so it's not going to fall apart on you. To clean it up, I cut off any excess twine. I dry brined this roast, which means I added a half a teaspoon of salt per pound. I spread it evenly on all sides, and I put this roast in the fridge for 36 hours. This gave the salt a lot of time for it to fully dissolve and penetrate the meat deeply. Dry brining is highly recommended on thick pieces of meat. It adds moisture and a ton of flavor. By dry brining, you're going to get a much better product than seasoning the day you're cooking it. Now why boneless? Well, it's a lot simpler to cut at the end. And I really like the ability to cut thinner 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch slices. Also, it's a lot easier to get that perfect wall-to-wall pink on a boneless roast. Let's add a bit more flavor and add a rub to the exterior. Place in 2 tablespoons of pepper, 1 tablespoon of garlic, 1/4 tablespoon of paprika, 1/2 tablespoon of onion powder, and mix it well. I did not add any additional salt here. The salt during the dry brine was more than enough. Now for those wondering, where's my herbs? Well, I'm going to be basting it with some herb butter later on in the cook. I find those fresh herbs make a better impact if you wait towards the end of the cook to add them. Since the surface area on this roast is pretty dry, I'm going to coat it with some olive oil and give it a good rub down. And now we're ready to apply this rub. Give it a nice good coating on all sides. Now be generous because you really can't oversalt. I mean, this rub does not have salt to begin with, so you go ahead and season away. Once you season all sides, we're ready to start cooking. Our grill has reached 225 and we're ready to rock. This roast is going to slowly come up to temperature, and there's going to be some great smoke flavor being added. Let's cover and start cooking. All right, so now just let it roll and let it do its thing. Now watch those temps and adjust the vents if necessary. Now you want to flip and rotate every 30 minutes or so. Also, at the hour mark, I'm going to go ahead and probe it and watch my internal temperatures. Now for our herb butter. In our bowl, we'll drop in 1 stick of room temperature butter. Let's drop in a tablespoon of thyme and a tablespoon of rosemary, and a nice helping of that rub you used earlier for our roast. And finally, a pressed clove of garlic. And we're going to mix very well. I'm going to transport over this garlic herb mixture to a grill-safe container and melt our butter. Now, when our rib roast reaches about 100 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature, we're going to go ahead and start basting it. We are packing some amazing flavor here. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to let us know by giving us a like and a subscribe so you don't miss out on these delicious recipes. Remember to keep flipping and rotating to cover our roast with all this extra delicious flavor. Keep using this herb butter baste. It's gonna add a ton of flavor. So be sure to baste about every 15 to 20 minutes. Go ahead and do that until it reaches an internal temperature about 125 degrees. Once our roast reaches 125 internal temperature, it's time for the final part of our cook, the searing process. Remember that with the rest and the sear, we'll be raising the internal temperature to around 130 to 135 for a beautiful medium rare. We'll want to get the grill super hot, so I'm switching over to some lump because it runs a lot hotter. Once the grill is raging, let's place in our roast. And rather than placing my hands over the heat, I like to rotate the grate over to the indirect zone, flip, rotate, and then rotate the roast back over to the hot side. Keep an eye on your internal temperatures. I like wearing cotton gloves underneath my nitro gloves, which works on the indirect side, but you definitely do not want to place your hands over the fire here. Use barbecue tongs instead. And once you're happy with the sear, remove and let it rest while you get all of your sides cooking. Like this wonderful au jus. I find that the drippings collected in the pan to be a little too smoky for my liking, so I prefer not to use them for the au jus. But here's a simple au jus you can make without any drippings. You'll need 4 tablespoons of butter, a pressed garlic clove, and a tablespoon of chopped onion, 2 cups of beef broth, 2 to 3 tablespoons of red wine, and about 1.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. About a teaspoon of that rub I used, a pinch of those fresh rosemary and thyme herbs. Let it come to a complete boil and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Then transfer it over to a new pan and strain the thicker pieces out of the au jus. Taste for salt. Add beef bouillon until you're happy with the salt level. Let me simmer for a few more minutes and it'll be ready to serve. Now that our roast has been resting nicely, it's time to slice into our roast. Go. Heck yeah. Okay, that was a perfect bite. It's smoky, it's got a ton of flavor, it's cooked at a perfect medium rare, so each bite is just packed with so much flavor. Absolutely perfect. Now you can plate this any way you want. You can make yourself a little sandwich and then dip it in some au jus. Oh baby. Now at the top of the video, I mentioned a third option that you could do, for those picky eaters who don't like their meat medium rare. It's actually quite simple. Throw the slice on a hot grill, chop it up, and make some tacos. I get cilantro, a little spicy salsa. I promise you that this is gonna be the best taco they will ever eat. Now my favorite way is to put on a plate and pour over some delicious au jus. I do hope you give this recipe a try. And remember, 2 zones are better than 1. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.